Howdy folks, welcome back. So in this video, I'm just going to quick go through the practice quiz and again show you how I go about solving the problem. Again, I recognize it's by no means the only way, and in some cases it might not be the way that works best for you. But if you're curious as to where to start, hopefully this will kind of give you an idea as to how I would go about solving the problems here. All right, so it's just a single problem this time around, but these problems tend to be fairly lengthy. So I think that it'll keep us busy enough. All right. So we're just solving a system of three equations. So we have the system x minus 3y plus 4z equals 1. Next equation, so we have 4x minus 10y plus 10z equals 4. And then we have negative 3x plus 9y minus 5z equals negative 6. All right. So our first step here is I'm just going to convert this into a matrix. So you're just going to focus on the coefficients here. So you have 1, negative 3, 4, and then I like to put a line where the equal sign would be because that kind of lets me know that this part is dealing with my variables and this is dealing with my constants there. So you have 4, negative 10, positive 10, and 4. And we have negative 3, 9, negative 5, and negative 6. All right. So you want to get ones along the diagonal and zeros everywhere else on the left-hand side of your matrix here. All right. So in this case, we already have a 1 in our first diagonal, so we're good there. So we just need to get zeros and everywhere else in this first column. All right. So to do that, we need to ask ourselves, okay, so the first row is just going to stay as it is for right now. All right, and you just got to ask yourself, okay, what do I need to multiply this row by? So when I add it to 4 here, I end up with 0. So in this case, it's going to be negative 4, so we're just going to take negative 4 times row 1 and add it to row 2. And then you can just go term by term across the row. So you have negative 4 times 1 is going to be negative 4, plus 4 is going to be 0. Negative 4 times negative 3 is going to be positive 12, plus a negative 10 is going to be 2. Negative 4 times 4 is going to be negative 16, plus 10 is going to be negative 6. And negative 4 times 1 is going to be negative 4, plus 4 is going to be 0. All right. And then we're going to do a similar thing with the third row here. All right, so again, we need to ask ourselves, what do we need to multiply 1 by? So when we add it to negative 3, we end up with 0. So in this case, we're going to take 3 times row 1 and add it to row 3. And again, you just go term by term here. So 3 times 1 is going to be 3, plus negative 3 is going to be 0. 3 times negative 3 is going to be negative 9, plus 9 is going to be 0. And finally, 3 times 4 is going to be 12, plus negative 5 is going to be 7. And 3 times 1 is going to be 3, plus negative 6 is going to be negative 3. All right. So then you just move to the next diagonal. So here we have 2. So we want to get a 1 in that entry. So to do that, we're just going to take row 2 divided by 2. So you have negative 3, 4, 1. All right, and then we're just going to divide every single entry in row 2 by 2. So we have 0. 2 divided by 2 is going to be 1. Negative 6 divided by 2 is going to be negative 3. And 0 divided by 2 is going to be 0. And then we have 0, 0, 7, negative 3. All right. And then again, we want to get everything. So we want to get everything in the second column to be a 0 as well. All right. So in this case, the second row is going to be same here. All right. And then in this case, the third row already has an entry in the second column of 0. So we can just keep the third row as well. So we just need to figure out what do we need to multiply this entry by. So when I add it to the first row, I end up with 0 in the second column. So what do we need to multiply 1 by? So when we add it to -3, we end up with 0. So in this case, that's going to be 3. So we have 3 times row 2 plus row 1. All right, so again, we just go term by term across row 2. So we have 3 times 0 is going to be 0, plus 1 is going to be 1. 3 times 1 is going to be 3, plus -3 is going to be 0. 3 times -3 is going to be -9, plus 4 is going to be -5, and 3 times 0 is going to be 0, plus 1 is going to be 1. All right. All right, so then we're just going to do the same thing for this third column here. All right. So here we just need to figure out what do we need to divide 7 by to get 1. So in that case, it's going to be 7. So we're just going to divide everything in the third row by 7. So row 3 divided by 7. 1, 3, 0. And then we have 0, 0, 1, and then -3/7. All right. And again, we want to get zeros everywhere else in this third column. So again, we need to start with row 1 here. So we need to ask ourselves, okay, what do we need to multiply 1 by? So when we add it to -5, we end up with 0. So in this case, it's going to be 5. So we're going to take 5 times row 3 and add it to row 1. So 0, 0, 1. So the third row is going to stay as it is. So we have 5 times 0 is going to be 0, plus 1 is going to be 0. 5 times 0 is going to be 0, plus 0 is going to be 0. Or sorry, this should be 1 in there. All right, 5 times 1 is going to be 5, plus a -5 is going to be 0. And then 5 times -3/7 is going to be -15/7. So we have -15/7 plus 1. And here on these calculators, we can click this S to D button. So I'll move it from fraction to a decimal. So you end up with -8/7. All right, and then we have to do the same thing for the second row here. All right, so again, we need to ask ourselves, okay, what do we need to multiply 1 by? So when we add it to -3, we end up with 0. All right, so we're going to take 3 times row 3 and add it to row 2. So we have 0, 1, 3 times 1 is going to be 3, plus -3 is going to be 0. And 3 times -3/7 is going to be -9/7. All right. So again, my columns represent my variables. So then this matrix corresponds to x equals -8/7, y equals -9/7, and z equals -3/7. So that would end up being my answer. All right. So again, it's just one problem, but it's a relatively lengthy process. But yeah, hopefully you found this helpful if you're curious as to where to start. In the meantime, have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye now.